This story is based on real events, shared by those who lived them.
I was 22 the summer I decided to hitchhike across the Aegean coast. No big plans, no fancy reason. I just wanted to feel free, the kind of freedom you read about in books but never really live. My backpack was light, 2 shirts, a camera, a notebook, and the naive belief that most people are good. It was early July. The asphalt shimmered in the heat, cicadas screamed in the olive trees, and the air smelled like salt and dust. I started near Izmir, planning to make my way north, maybe end up in Avluk, maybe keep going. I didn't care where I slept or what I ate. I just wanted to move. That's when I met him. He pulled over in a silver Renault, the kind that had seen better days. The car door opened with a dry creak, and a tan face leaned out. "Where you headed?" he asked, smiling. His accent was local, Aegean soft. "North," I said. "Avluk, maybe?" "Hop in," he said. "I'm going that way." His name was Serkan, about 30, maybe a little older. He had the kind of calm confidence that made you feel safe, or maybe I just wanted to feel that way. We drove in silence for a while, the sea flashing between the pines on our right. He asked about my trip, laughed at how little I carried. "Freedom looks lighter than it feels," he said with a grin. And just like that, I felt like I'd met someone who understood. We stopped by a roadside cafe near Dakili. He insisted on buying me ayran and toast, said I needed energy for the road. He talked about his travels, how he'd worked seasonal jobs along the coast, how he'd once spent a summer sleeping in his car. Everything about him felt effortless, like he'd figured life out. He told me he was heading to a small coastal village near Avluk to visit a friend who ran a guest house. "Come with me," he said. "Quiet place, cheap food, and the sea is unreal. You can stay a few nights before moving on." It sounded perfect. We shook hands like old friends and hit the road again. That's how it always starts, small kindnesses that feel like fate. We reached the village just before sunset. Stone houses, blue shutters, fishermen mending nets. Everything smelled like grilled sardines and jasmine. Serkan parked by a narrow alley and waved at a woman watering flowers from her balcony. "Abla, we're here." She smiled faintly and said something about dinner being ready. It was like they knew each other, though she never once said his name. We ate on the terrace overlooking the water. Serkan did most of the talking, stories about people he met, the jobs he'd quit, the beaches no one knew about. He had that energy, the kind that pulls you in, makes you believe. After dinner, he offered me a cigarette. "I don't smoke," I said. He smiled. "Good. Keep your lungs clean. You'll need them for the climb tomorrow." "The climb? There's an old lighthouse on the hill," he said. "Best view of the Aegean. We'll go at dawn." That night, I fell asleep to the sound of the waves and thought, this is the life I wanted. We left before sunrise. The air was cool, full of thyme and salt. Serkan walked fast, talking the whole time, about how people always leave, how trust is just a word. He laughed, but there was something in his voice that didn't match his smile. When we reached the top, the view was breathtaking, the sea stretching forever, islands like stones on blue glass. We sat there for a while. He lit a cigarette, stared into the horizon, and said, "You trust people too easily." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He didn't laugh back. That afternoon, we went to the beach near the cliffs. I left my backpack near our spot, ran into the water. When I came back, my wallet was gone. "Did you see my bag?" I asked. He shrugged. "You probably left it somewhere." I searched everywhere, nothing. Then I noticed the pocket of his shorts. A flash of leather, my wallet. "Hey," I said quietly. "That's mine." He didn't look at me. Just said, "Relax. I took it so you wouldn't lose it again." He tossed it back at me like it was nothing. Everything was there, ID, cards, cash. Still, something had shifted. That night, he wanted to sleep near the water. We made a small fire. He talked less, smoked more. At one point, he said, "You ever think maybe we're not meant to travel with people? Maybe the road's supposed to strip us of everything, even trust?" I said, "That's kind of dark." He smiled. "Maybe, but it's true." Then he asked to see my camera, the old Nikon hanging from my neck. I handed it over. He flipped through the photos, nodding. "Nice shots," he said. When he gave it back, it was lighter. Later, I checked, the memory card was gone. In the morning, I woke up alone. The car, my backpack, my shoes, gone. Just my camera, Lying in the sand, I walked barefoot along the coast until I reached the village. The woman from the balcony was sitting outside, peeling beans. When she saw me, her face fell. "He left?" she asked. I nodded. She sighed. "He does that every summer, finds someone new." My stomach sank. "Sirkin." She shook her head. "That's not his name." I hitched another ride back toward Izmir. Every car that passed made me flinch. Every time someone smiled, I wondered what they wanted. The road didn't feel free anymore. It felt alive, watching, waiting, testing me. I never saw him again. But a month later, a package arrived at my dorm in Izmir. No return address. Inside, a small memory card. My photos, and one new image. It was me, asleep by the fire, the night before he left. For the next few hours, I walked. The sun was merciless, burning my shoulders, blinding me off the white road. The soles of my feet were raw, cut by gravel and heat. I didn't know where I was going, I just kept moving. As if staying still would make everything real. Every passing car threw dust in my face. Every sound behind me made me turn around, half expecting to see him walking there, smiling, holding my backpack like it was all just a misunderstanding. But he never came. I reached a gas station near the highway by noon. The man behind the counter looked at me, sunburnt, barefoot, dazed, and asked, "You okay, kid?" I nodded. He handed me a bottle of water, didn't ask for money. That small kindness hit harder than I expected. I drank too fast, choked, coughed, laughed, cried, all at once. For the first time in days, I felt human again. I took a bus that evening back toward Izmir. Sitting by the window, I watched the Aegean roll by. Olive groves, abandoned rest stops, blue haze on the horizon. The sea looked different now, still beautiful, but colder. I kept replaying everything in my head, every word Sirkin had said, every smile that I'd mistaken for kindness. And the thing that haunted me most wasn't what he took. It was that, for a while, I had genuinely trusted him. When I reached the city, I stayed a few nights at a cheap hostel near El Sankak. There was a mirror on the wall beside my bed. And every time I looked into it, I barely recognized myself. Same face, but the eyes had changed. A week later, I checked my email for the first time since the trip. One unread message waited in my inbox. No sender name, just an address, unknown@roadmail.co. The subject line said, "Don't stop trusting." Inside, there was no text, just an attached photo. It was the same shot from the memory card, me asleep by the fire, but now, zoomed out. In the corner, barely visible, was Sirkin's reflection in the car window. He was holding the camera. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Somewhere between betrayal and acceptance, something inside me had shifted. He'd stolen from me, yes, but he'd also shown me the truth about myself. How far I was willing to go to believe in people. A month later, I went back on the road, not far, just a short trip to the coast near Foca. I needed to see if I could still do it, if I could still trust the world, even a little. This time, I didn't stick my thumb out, I walked, slowly, letting the rhythm of the sea match my steps. A truck driver pulled over at one point and offered a ride. He looked harmless, kind. I almost said yes, but something inside me said, not yet. So I smiled, thanked him, and kept walking. The road felt lighter this time, not because it had changed, but because I finally understood it. Days passed before I stopped checking every face in the crowd. Every car mirror, every shadow that stretched too long. It's strange, you don't realize how fragile trust is until it breaks. And then you see it everywhere, in every handshake, every smile, every word that sounds too easy. I stayed in Izmir longer than I planned. Every morning I'd walk down to the cordon, buy tea from the same old man by the sea, and sit on the stone wall watching ferries come and go. The sound of the gulls, the smell of the sea. It should have been comforting, but there was a heaviness in it now. The world felt louder, sharper, like I was seeing it without its filter for the first time. Sometimes, I'd catch myself staring at the horizon, waiting to see that silver Renault appear again. Half of me wanting to confront him, the other half wanting to thank him. One morning, the tea seller looked at me and said, "You come here every day, waiting for someone?" I hesitated. No, just trying to remember who I was before. He smiled, The kind of knowing smile old people have when they've seen too much. "Don't wait too long," he said. "The sea only returns what it wants to." That line stuck with me for days, because maybe that was what the road had done too. Taken what it wanted, and left me with what I needed to see. A week later, I had a dream. We were back at the beach, same fire, same stars. Sirkin sat across from me, silent. I asked him why he did it. Why he took everything. He looked up and said, "Because you needed to stop trusting people like me." And then I woke up, but the smell of smoke lingered. Real, not imagined. When I checked my bag, the old camera was gone. In its place, a small seashell, perfectly white. No one else had been in the room. It sounds strange to say, but forgiveness doesn't start with someone saying sorry. It starts when you stop needing them too. That afternoon, I went down to the pier again. The same spot where the ferries cut through the sunlight. I held the seashell in my palm and thought about all the people who'd passed through my life without ever staying. How that's what travel really is. A series of people you trust for a little while, before the road takes them away. I threw the shell into the water and whispered, "All right, I get it now." And for the first time since that trip, I didn't feel angry or scared, just free again. 2 days later, I packed my bag again. The same 2 shirts, no camera this time. And before leaving, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The eyes were still different, older maybe. But there was something else too, peace. When I stepped outside, the air smelled like summer again. The cicadas were loud, the sunlight golden. And for a moment I realized the world hadn't changed. Only I had. Maybe that's what trust really is. Not believing everyone's good, but believing that even when they're not, you'll survive it. It's strange, you think once you go home the story ends, that you can leave the road behind. Wash the dust off, sleep in your own bed, and just start over. But the road doesn't leave that easily, it lingers. In the way the light hits the floor at dusk, in the smell of wet asphalt after rain. In the quiet moments when you find yourself thinking, would I still get in that car if I had the chance again? Some nights, I walk down to the coast road near my apartment, just to hear the distant hum of passing trucks. The sound used to comfort me. Now it feels like a heartbeat I can't forget. Every headlight that flashes across the water looks like an invitation, a reminder. A few weeks later, I was sitting on a bench by the sea. Same place, same time of day. A traveler sat down beside me. You could tell by the backpack, the faded shoes. The same restless energy I used to have. He asked if I knew a good place to stay. I gave him the name of a small pension nearby. Then we sat there for a while, watching the ferries come and go. He looked at me and said, "You travel too?" I smiled. "Used to." He nodded, and after a moment, asked, "Do you ever regret it?" I thought about Sirkin. About the fire, the missing camera, the photograph, and how a part of me still looked for him on every road. "No," I said quietly. "I learned what kind of person I don't want to become." He smiled, a tired, grateful smile, and walked away. I watched him until he disappeared into the crowd, his backpack blending with the sea of people. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to follow. That night, I wrote a letter I knew I'd never mail. It started simply, "Sirkin, or whatever your name really is. I hope the road treats you kindly this time." I wrote about how I'd stopped hitchhiking, how I'd learned to listen to silence, and how the things he took from me weren't the worst of it. It was the trust that hurt most. But I also wrote that maybe he needed that trust, if only to remember what it felt like to be believed in. By the end of the letter, my anger was gone. In its place, just the sound of the night, and the faint hum of a world that keeps moving, no matter who we lose along the way. I folded the letter, tucked it inside my notebook, and never looked at it again. Months passed, the city grew smaller, and life tried to go back to normal. But one morning, one quiet, golden morning, I woke up with that old feeling again, that pull. The one that starts in your chest and whispers, "Go." So I packed my bag, lighter this time. Not because I owned less, but because I carried less fear. When I stepped onto the road again, I didn't look for cars or strangers. I just walked. The air smelled like pine and salt. And somewhere beyond the bend, I swear I could hear the sea laughing. People like to think closure is loud, a confrontation, a confession, an ending you can point to. But it isn't. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own footsteps. Steady and certain, moving away from the version of yourself that once believed everyone was good. And yet, if I could go back to that day, standing by the road with my thumb out, watching that silver Renault slow down beside me, I think I'd still get in. Because without that drive, without the betrayal, without the loss, I'd still be the person who thought trust came easy. Now I know better, and somehow, that feels like freedom too. People think the road teaches you about beauty, freedom, adventure. Maybe that's true. But it also teaches you about boundaries, about how much of yourself you give to strangers, and how easily that can be taken. Now, every time I see someone standing by the road with their thumb out, I look away, not out of cruelty, out of fear. Because I know what happens when you trust the wrong person. Real people, real road stories, and some of them you don't walk away from unchanged.